The notification arrived at 3:17 a.m., casting a soft blue light on my face in the darkness of our empty bedroom. I had fallen asleep once again waiting for him. It was a message from American Express confirming Richard's purchase of 2 business class tickets to Paris departing next Friday. 2 tickets, not 1 or 3, but 2. As tears welled up in my eyes, the screen blurred, and my thumb hovered over the notification, trembling slightly before I clicked to open it. I didn't want to know more, but I felt the need to. After 15 years of marriage, I had learned to recognize the patterns, the signs, the quiet betrayals that lurk in the shadows of what we once thought was love. Richard hadn't mentioned any trip to Paris. He hadn't brought it up over dinner 3 nights ago when he was unusually attentive, or yesterday morning when he kissed me goodbye, claiming he would be working late again. The second ticket was not meant for me. It had never been for me. Sitting up in our king-size bed, the one we had chosen together during happier times, my heart sank with the weight of betrayal. I wrapped myself in the duvet, seeking refuge from what was about to unfold. The house enveloped in a profound silence, only broken by the distant hum of the refrigerator below. A gentle rain had begun tapping against the windows, providing a somber backdrop to the turmoil in my life. The word Paris escaped my lips, laden with bitterness as I recalled our honeymoon there 15 years ago. The irony wasn't lost on me. Richard returning to the place where our love story began, now seemingly marking its end. I pondered whether he would take her to the same quaint cafe on Rue de l'Air where he vowed to love me eternally. Would they stroll along the Seine at sunset, his arm around her as it once was around me? With a heavy heart, I opened my laptop and accessed our joint account, where the undeniable truth lay before me in stark digital detail. 2 tickets purchased under the names of Richard and Melissa. Melissa, his marketing consultant. Melissa, who just a month prior had dined at our table, smiling at me while harboring her. The foot had likely been busy under my husband's. I noticed that my hands were steady now, as if something cold and clear was forming inside me, pushing aside the paint and leaving behind something solid, something sharp. Heading to the bathroom, I gazed at my reflection. At 43, I saw laugh lines etched deeply, hair now streaked with silver from skipping coloring during the pandemic. When did I begin to appear so worn out? When did I become someone easily discarded by my husband? Yet that night there was a glimmer in my eyes, an intensity I hadn't felt in years. I was resolute. I decided not to resort to tantrums or pleadings to make him stay. I refused to be the frantic, rejected wife. Instead, I chose a different path. Grabbing my phone, I captured a screenshot of the ticket confirmation. Then logging into my secret email account unknown to Richard, I forwarded it to myself. Proof. The beginning of something new. That night, I refrained from calling him and inquiring about his whereabouts. After deciding not to wait for his return, I brewed a cup of tea and settled at our kitchen island to reflect. I reflected on our past, envisioning it in reverse. The gradual waning of his love, the increasing frequency of his business trips, the moments he would abruptly halt conversations when his phone buzzed, and the faint scent of perfume on his collar. My thoughts also turned to our daughter Emma, who was at college and adored her father. Unaware of his carefully crafted facade as the ideal dad, successful businessman, and devoted husband, all the while undermining the foundations of our marriage. As the dawn broke, casting a gentle golden glow across the granite countertops, my plan became clear. No longer fueled by anger, but by a newfound clarity after recognizing the web of self-deception, I welcomed Richard home that morning as he apologized for working late, concealing my true emotions behind a smile and a kiss. "You seem to be working really hard," I remarked as I pushed a cup of coffee in his direction. He gratefully accepted, unaware that I had already contacted my travel agent while he was in the shower. I had secretly booked a ticket to Paris for myself, securing seat 4C right next to 4B, the seat occupied by Melissa and 4A by the window. The game had commenced, and this time I held the power to dictate the rules. The week leading up to their flight was a surreal charade. Each morning, I woke up beside Richard, cooked him breakfast, and bid him goodbye, all the while knowing that each night I would hear his tales of work troubles and client meetings, feigning interest as my inner voice echoed, "Deceiver, deceiver, deceiver." On Tuesday, he informed me of an unexpected client meeting in Chicago, setting off on a trip that would keep him away until Sunday night. His expression masked with false regret, he packed his suitcase as he lamented the unfortunate timing. I sat on the edge of. I found myself on our bed, observing him meticulously choosing ties, including the blue silk one I had gifted him last Christmas. Among them, I understand, I remarked as I handed him this travel toiletry bag. Business is business. Later that night after he departed, I uncorked a bottle of wine and rang my sister Claire. I hadn't disclosed anything to anyone yet. Uttering it aloud would make it tangibly real in a way I wasn't prepared for, but I needed at least one person to be aware of my intentions. He's whisking her off to Paris, I divulged after my second glass that Friday. The silence on the line lingered so long that I feared we had lost connection. Jess, Claire eventually spoke. Are you absolutely certain? I chuckled. It felt hollow even to myself. I have seen the tickets, Claire. And both of their names. First class. Hotel reservations at Le Maurice. A suite. The same hotel where we celebrated our honeymoon. That scoundrel, Claire murmured. What are you going to do? Confront him, I stated, detailing my strategy to her. That's crazy, she remarked once I had finished, but also somewhat brilliant. Are you certain about this? Was I sure? No, I wasn't. I found myself doubting everything. My marriage, my future, and even my own identity outside of being known as Richard's wife for the past 15 years. Despite this uncertainty, one thing was crystal clear to me. I deserved to know the whole truth and to reclaim my dignity on my own terms. With determination, I confided in Claire, expressing my need to see the truth for myself and to confront the situation head-on. The following day, I discreetly withdrew $15,000 from our joint savings account, careful not to arouse suspicion from Richard. This amount was enough to cover what I needed without causing alarm. I opened a new bank account solely in my name, taking a step towards gaining independence. I then reached out to a lawyer from a different firm, unbeknownst to Richard, scheduling a consultation to explore my options. When asked about the purpose of my visit, I simply stated that I was seeking advice. That evening, as I stood in front of my closet pondering what to pack for the upcoming trip to Paris, I contemplated the attire suitable for confronting a deceitful husband thousands of feet in the air. Opting for my most luxurious pieces, I carefully selected items such as the designer dress he had gifted me for our anniversary and his soft cashmere sweater, preparing myself for the unsettling journey ahead. I brought up the green in my eyes, the shoes that made me stand taller than I felt on Wednesday. Richard called from Chicago. How's the weather there? I asked innocently. Cold, he said without hesitation. Typical Chicago winter. I pulled up the weather app on my phone. Chicago 52 degrees and sunny, unusually warm for February. Sounds miserable, I said. Stay warm, he said, his voice softening in that way that used to make my heart skip. This trip feels longer than usual. I bit back the words that threatened to spill out. Instead, I said, I miss you too. I'm thinking of visiting Emma this weekend since you're away. Maybe drive up to campus and surprise her. That's a great idea, he says, sounding relieved. She'd love that. Another lie to add to the collection. He knew I wouldn't be able to reach him while he was supposedly in Chicago if I was with our daughter. Clean alibi on both sides. Thursday night, I packed my suitcase with methodical precision. Clothes, toiletries, passport, and one item Richard didn't. I had a small high-definition camera cleverly disguised as a pen, which Claire had helped me order online as a precaution. That night, I struggled to sleep as thoughts of Richard and Melissa in Paris consumed my mind. I envisioned them laughing, holding hands under the Eiffel Tower, and sharing intimate moments in a hotel room paid for with our hard-earned money. Money that I had contributed to during the difficult early years of Richard's business, money meant for our retirement, Emma's future wedding, and the life we had planned together. In the darkness, I lamented how I had sacrificed everything for them, only to be discarded like nothing. The following morning arrived bright and chilly, and I set off for the airport in a New York 3 hours before their flight. I aimed to be comfortably seated before they boarded, seeking the element of surprise. At check-in, the airline agent beamed at me, commenting on my trip to Paris. I returned her smile, replying that I was meeting someone there. Unbeknownst to her, my purpose for the journey was far more complex. It is true, Richard excelled at chess while I struggled. He had attempted to instruct me in the game's strategies early in our marriage, always stressing the importance of anticipating future moves. According to him, the game's beauty lay in the element of surprise, catching your opponent off guard with an attack they never saw coming until it was too late. Ironically, his own lesson would ultimately lead to his downfall. Long before I discovered the truth about Paris, I had already begun my preparations. A feeling of unease had been growing within me, prompting me to gather small pieces of information, subtle digital clues that most people would overlook. When Richard carelessly left his laptop unattended last summer, I took the opportunity to install monitoring software that would forward his emails to a secure account. I convinced myself that it was not out of a desire to spy, but rather a means to protect our family should my suspicions prove to be true. I never felt the need to check the information, allowing it to accumulate silently as evidence of what I was not yet ready to confront. Until this moment, I sat at gate C-17, observing passengers move around as I accessed my email account for the first time. What I found was a plethora of exchanges between Richard and Melissa spanning 18 months, from hotel reservations and late-night messages to unsettling photos and detailed plans for a future that noticeably excluded me. The affair itself was not the most incriminating aspect. Rather, it was the financial evidence that caught my attention. Methodically, Richard had been transferring funds from our shared business account to a separate one, starting with small amounts and gradually escalating to larger sums as his audacity grew. It became clear that he was orchestrating an exit plan, securing his own financial stability while leaving me vulnerable. Unbeknownst to him, I had already consulted with our longtime accountant, Marcus, a conversation we had just 2 weeks prior. Marcus had been with us since the early days of our business in the garage, and I had even helped his daughter through challenging times by writing recommendation letters and providing tutoring. As Marcus examined the evidence I presented, he shook his head in disbelief. In quiet disbelief, Marcus informed Jessica that the situation was not only unethical, but also delved into illegal territory, particularly with the client billing discrepancies. Despite Richard assuming that Jessica was solely the creative and people-oriented individual, she reminded herself of her MBA background, which had been put on hold while she supported their daughter in Richard's career. With an hour left until her boarding time, Jessica checked her watch and took action. She scheduled 3 emails to be sent out automatically in 24 hours if she did not cancel them. One to the company board containing financial evidence, one to her daughter with a gentle and truthful explanation, and one to Richard's parents expressing regret over the situation. It was not out of vindictiveness, but a desire to be thorough. Following this, Jessica phoned Detective Ramirez, a former college friend specializing in financial crimes. A recent enlightening conversation with him had prompted her to reach out for assistance. She confirmed, "Just send the text when you're ready and we'll proceed." "Thank you," I said, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "I know this is unusual." 15 years of friendship merits unusual, she replied. "Besides, what he's doing is textbook fraud. We would have caught it eventually." I ended the call and checked my appearance in my compact mirror. I had been to the salon yesterday. Cut, color, style. The woman looking back at me wasn't the faded wife Richard had been neglecting. She was polished, confident, purposeful. I applied a fresh coat of lipstick, Chanel Rouge Allure de Pirate, a bold red I had stopped wearing because Richard had once commented that it was too much for me. My phone vibrated with a text from Claire. "Plane landed yet?" she asked. "Not yet," I replied. "Boarding soon. I'm ready." "Remember," she texted back, "you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for every woman who's ever been made to feel invisible." I smiled at that. Claire, ever the feminist crusader. But she wasn't wrong. There was something larger at play. As I prepared for my flight, I carefully packed my belongings, paying special attention to my carry-on bag. Within it was a sealed envelope containing important documents prepared by my lawyer, divorce papers, financial disclosures, and evidence of fraud, all ready to be served mid-air at 35,000 feet. I also made sure to include Richard's favorite whiskey in a TS state-approved container, not as a peace offering, but as a strategic element of my plan. I knew that Richard always indulged in alcohol during flights to ease his fear of flying, a fact he believed I was unaware of. As I made my way towards the jetway, my heart sank as I caught sight of Richard and Melissa arriving at the gate. Richard's hand rested casually on the small of her back in a tender gesture that struck me deeply. Melissa was giggling at something he said, her adoring gaze fixed upon him. It had been years since Richard had looked at me with that kind of affection. Lost in their own world of secret excitement, they didn't notice me as they prepared for the romantic getaway they thought they were embarking on. I was the first to board the plane and I made my way to seat 4C. After settling in, I organized my belongings meticulously, including placing the hidden camera pen in my jacket pocket. I then ordered a glass of champagne from the flight attendant who was greeting business class passengers, celebrating special occasions. With a professional smile, she inquired about the occasion as she handed me the drink. Upon taking a sip, I felt the bubbles tickling my tongue. To say that, I replied cryptically, "Today marks the beginning of a new chapter for me." Little did she know how accurate my statement would turn out to be. As I enjoyed my champagne, I kept a watchful eye on the cabin door, anticipating the arrival of my husband and his mistress. They made their entrance during the final boarding call. Observing Richard guiding Melissa down the aisle, his hand tenderly placed on her waist and whispering something in her ear that elicited a joyous giggle, I couldn't help but notice the intimacy in their interactions. An intimacy that felt foreign and unsettling compared to the memories of Melissa's cheerful compliments at our family dinner table. I took a composed breath and raised my champagne glass slightly, using it to partially shield my face as Richard led Melissa towards row 4. Oblivious to what was unfolding, Richard cheerfully directed Melissa to take the window seat. Meanwhile, I observed as Melissa smoothly settled into 4F, placing her luxurious designer bag under the seat. A bag identical to one I had seen in a magazine and Richard had dismissed as overly expensive. As Richard stood next to me, preparing to sit down, I lowered my glass and greeted him calmly. "Hello, Richard," I stated. The color drained from his face so rapidly that I thought he might faint. After a moment of stunned silence, he mustered, "Jessica, what are you? How are you?" I then pointed to my boarding pass for seat 4C, revealing that I was seated right beside him. Melissa, initially puzzled, soon recognized me and realization dawned on her face. In a state of sheer panic, she turned to Richard, silently urging him to resolve the situation. "You must get off the plane, Richard," he whispered urgently, his voice tinged with desperation. "We can discuss this later, not here. Please take your seat, sir." A flight attendant interjected from behind him. "We need to prepare for departure." Richard complied mechanically, his body tense with anxiety. Despite the cool cabin air, a thin layer of sweat glistened on his forehead. "Jessica," he murmured urgently, his voice barely above a whisper, "let me explain. This isn't what it seems." I arched an eyebrow in response. "Is it because it appears you're taking your marketing consultant to Paris on our 15th anniversary weekend, to the same hotel where we celebrated our honeymoon, using funds from our joint account?" A soft gasp escaped Melissa in her window seat. The flight attendant approached with pre-takeoff drinks, offering champagne for the gentleman and the lady by the window. "Yes, that's correct," I affirmed on their behalf. "My husband and his colleague. We would love some champagne. We're celebrating after all." Richard shot me a warning look as he accepted the drink with trembling hands. The flight attendant withdrew, oblivious to the silent battle raging in row 4. "What do you want?" Richard asked, his voice a combination of anger and fear. "Money. Is that why you're here, to humiliate me?" I laughed softly, genuinely amused by his misreading of the situation. "Richard, if I wanted money, I would have just transferred it from our accounts the way you've been doing for the past 18 months. His face went from white to gray. "What are you talking about, the offshore account?" I said, "The creative accounting at the firm, the missing client payments. Did you really think Marcus wouldn't notice eventually? He's been loyal to us for 12 years. You talked to Marcus?" His whisper was barely audible over the engine starting up. "I did," I confirmed, taking another sip of champagne. "Detective Earlier is in the firm's board of directors, and our lawyer, well, my lawyer now." I reached into my bag and retrieved the sealed envelope, placing it gently on his lap. "Happy anniversary, darling. 15 years is traditionally crystal, but given our situation, I believe legal papers are more fitting," I said. Richard stared at the envelope, not daring to touch it. Beside him, Melissa sat frozen, her glass of champagne untouched. "You're bluffing," he muttered, lacking conviction in his voice. In response, I pulled out my phone and displayed the email. A trigger set to activate in 24 hours, sending detailed information about his financial and personal betrayals to board members, clients, and family, unless I intervened. "You see, Richard," I spoke quietly, "while you were planning your getaway, I was planning too. The difference is that my plan doesn't just ruin a marriage, it ruins everything." As the seatbelt sign lit up with a ding, I fastened mine and waited for him to do the same. "What do you want?" he finally asked, surrender evident in his tone. Ensuring Melissa can also hear me, I am seeking all entitlements under the law, as well as compensation for the harm to my professional reputation due to our association. I am requesting ownership of the house, half of the legitimate business interests, and complete transparency regarding all financial accounts. He objected, claiming it was excessive and unlikely to be granted by any court. But I calmly interjected, stating that we wouldn't be going to court. Taking the legal route would be messy, public, and could result in potential criminal charges for him. This matter will remain private if he signs the agreement today, here on this plane as it begins its journey down the runway. Richard nervously gripped the armrests, visibly anxious about flying. I offered helpfully, mentioning that there was a pen in the envelope for him to use. Melissa, sounding small and fearful, inquired about the criminal charges and expressed her belief that the money was obtained legitimately. With genuine empathy, I turned to her and revealed that she was not the only one being deceived by him. Richard scrambled with the envelope as the plane gained speed down the runway. The airplane cabin was transformed into a makeshift office with divorce papers, financial agreements, and a letter of resignation from the company board neatly laid out on the runway. These documents, meticulously prepared by my lawyer based on the evidence I had gathered, symbolized the official end of our 15-year marriage. As we ascended into the air, I observed Richard reviewing the papers, his expression alternating between disbelief and resignation. I pointed out the notary seated in business class, ready to witness his signatures on the document. Seat 8D, I informed him, recalling how we had secured her services at check-in. You seem to have thought of everything, Richard remarked bitterly. I learned from your advice to always think 10 steps ahead, I replied calmly. By the time we reached our cruising altitude, Richard had signed all the paperwork using the recording pen I had thoughtfully provided. This pen had not only captured the details of our conversation, but also documented every admission and sigh of defeat. With the seatbelt sign turned off, I signaled for the notary to make her way over. In the enclosed space of the airplane cabin, Richard watched as his signatures were formally witnessed and stamped, signaling the finality of our relationship. I'll have a scotch, he informed the passing flight attendant. As I carefully gathered the papers and returned them to my bag, he remarked, make it a double when we're done. You can keep your Paris trip, I replied. Consider it a parting gift. I've already booked my return flight for tomorrow morning. How generous, he retorted sarcastically. Ignoring his tone, I continued, I wouldn't make any purchases on the company card if I were you. Those accounts have already been frozen. Melissa's face paled as she stammered, what about our hotel reservations? Smiling at her, I reassured, I'm sure Richard can manage a more modest accommodation with cash, perhaps something with separate beds. Now that you know his true colors. That moment was a year ago today, marking 1 year since Flight BA 2297 to Paris, where I reclaimed my life at 35,000 feet. Now I find myself sitting at a cafe in the 7th arrondissement, observing tourists heading towards the Eiffel Tower as twilight descends over the city. The skies above Paris were clad in steel gray, with buildings resembling pale stones softly glowing in the diminishing light. I indulged in a glass of Bordeaux and a small plate of cheese, relishing each bite at my own pace. Paris carried a different ambience when not escaping from turmoil or clinging onto someone. It was saturated with potential following that turbulent flight. Events unfolded rapidly. The collection of evidence I had amassed provided Richard with minimal room for dispute. His associates orchestrated his exit from the company for a fraction of the value of his shares as a gesture of respect towards me. I held onto the house for a while before eventually selling it 6 months later. Every corner was tainted with memories of a love that never truly flourished. Emma remained silent for 2 months after I disclosed everything to her. Her admiration for her father had been unyielding, making the truth a harsh reality to swallow. However, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, she appeared at my new residence with a bottle of wine and tears in her eyes. I read the emails she confessed. Dad often left his computer open when I visited. I witnessed everything, Ed. That night we shared tears as we grieved not only the end of a marriage, but also the destruction of her idealized image of her father from childhood. The process of healing between us has been gradual yet sincere. Presently, she is here in Paris with me, but she is off exploring Montmartre with friends from her study abroad program. Richard and Melissa's illicit relationship did not survive the journey. Melissa abandoned him at Charles de Gaulle Airport after uncovering the extent of his deceit. His life took a dramatic turn as a result. His career suffered, his family fractured, and his reputation tainted. Last I heard, he relocated to Arizona to work for a small accounting firm run by a distant relative. There are moments when I question if my retaliation was too severe, too methodical. But then I recall his callous intentions of discarding me, leaving me financially vulnerable while he pursued a fresh start with a younger woman. Those memories of his systematic deception, gaslighting, and years of undermining my self-esteem to facilitate his escape revalidate my choices. I don't regret the actions I took. I only regret the years I spent minimizing my own light to uplift him. As I receive a text from Claire celebrating the 1-year anniversary of Operation Paris Takedown, she asked about my current perspective. I grin and snap a photo of my wine glass against the backdrop of the street, responding with a message clear and bright. The waiter tops up my glass and inquires if I desire anything else. In that moment, I ponder his question with deeper contemplation. Have I been wanting more after spending 15 years seeking what I believed was a flawless marriage, craving Richard's validation and attention, longing to be sufficient? What is my current desire? The answer emerges with unexpected clarity. I yearn for this instant, this tranquil happiness of embracing my true self, without any constraints, reconstructing the life entirely by my own standards. I have embarked on a venture to assist women in navigating financial independence after divorce through my consulting business. Despite the pain, my personal journey holds value for others on a similar path. Here's a healing story about turning personal pain into a professional passion. As the sky darkens over the Eiffel Tower, Emma joins me, bearing a striking resemblance with her determined chin and analytical gaze. Taking a seat opposite me, her cheeks flushed from the cold, I ask about her day while nudging the cheese plate her way. Amazing, she responds, her eyes shining. She reveals her thoughts of applying to graduate programs in the city. We delve into her aspirations, contemplating the open road of her future. In that moment, it dawns on me that my ultimate triumph wasn't merely in strategizing or financial gains. It was in demonstrating to my daughter the power of not tolerating diminishing treatment, of not accepting betrayal as a norm. Sometimes the bravest act is to walk away, or as in my case, to stand boldly next to the truth. On our way back to the hotel, Emma links her arm with mine and whispers, "Mom, I'm proud of you, for surviving, for flourishing." I softly grasp her arm, struggling for words. The Paris lights shimmer in puddles, creating a sea of shimmering stars below us, reflecting on my past self. Broken and afraid, yet discovering strength, I consider who I am now, whole, progressing, and the architect of my own journey. While some believe that living well is the ultimate retaliation, I found that living authentically is truly liberating.